Hello there, welcome back. This is our final episode of our Unshakable Confidence series for women in tech. If you are here live with me, drop a hand wave in the chat so I know you're joining in. And also, I know you can hear me. It's always good to make sure the tech is working when we go live. You never quite know. If you've been with me for some of our earlier sessions where we've been talking about confidence, tell me which session has shifted things for you the most so far. I'd actually love to know. What have you been trying? How have you put things in place? Is it working? I would love it if you've got any questions. I would love to make sure I cover those today as we wrap up this confidence series. So if you've got anything that you've been trying, it's not working, or you've been trying it has worked, I would love to know. But if this is your first time joining us, I am so glad you're here. Whenever you start joining these sessions, there is nothing wrong with it. It's never too late. It's never too early. It's never too late. But let me just introduce myself in case you don't know me. I'm Toni Collis. I'm an executive coach for women in tech, a board advisor, a former tech executive myself. And my work is all about helping brilliant women just like you, because you are brilliant, right? Just in case you needed to hear that today. Fridays, you are brilliant. Every day of the week, you are brilliant, but particularly today, because you are here. I help women like you close the gap between how capable we are and how confidently we're seen, how confident we show up. So we can step into that influence, that impact, and those leadership roles that I know we all work so hard to achieve. So if you've been following along, you'll notice we've been building layers. In the first session on confidence, we talked about the confidence gap, why competence isn't enough. You have to have the confidence as well, and why it's often the missing piece that means we struggle. In the second session, we talked on owning the room, how to walk into the room, own it with words, with body language, with voice shifts that help you sound confident even before you feel it. I was actually coaching one of the members of one of my leadership programs yesterday on doing her first executive presentation at a conference. She's got it next week. You know who you are if you're listening. I know you can do this. And we're talking about how, if you know the words, you can then start focusing on your body language, how you hold yourself on stage, how you can use your voice to sound more confident. And the more you do that, the more you get positive feedback from the room and it reinforces itself. So owning the room, we discussed in the second session about a month ago now. So incredibly important. And then last time we talked about stress testing those tools, handling the heat, staying calm and credible when the pressure is on, like standing on stage, like being asked a question that you don't know the answer to. Today, we're pulling it all together because everything we talked about so far is fixes in particular situations, how to show up with more confidence, how to build that confidence. But what I really want for every single one of you is confidence that lasts, that goes with you, that doesn't mean you keep coming back to this place. So today I want to dive into how to shift from self-doubt to self-trust. No matter the meeting, the feedback, the challenge, the presentation, you know you rely on you to show up with steadiness and authority. So I'd love to hear in the comments, have you ever felt like your confidence comes and goes? Strong one week, shaky the next. Drop me a yes or a no in the comments. If it's a yes, you're in the right place. Okay, well, that's why we're here. So let's start with something I hear from almost every woman I coach at some point. Sometimes it takes a couple of weeks for this to come up, but I hear it pretty much from everybody. Something along the lines of, I thought I was confident, and then one setback, one piece of tough feedback, one tense meeting, and suddenly I'm spiraling. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like you? Does that sound like that might be happening? Here's what's happening. Most of us have been taught to build our confidence on external wins, external validation. We nail the presentation and somebody says, well done. You get the promotion and you're like, oh, wow, they believe me. Someone praises our work. Great, external validation. In that moment, you get a confidence spike. But then it drops, it goes away. And the next time something goes wrong, that confidence, which was spiking, just evaporates as quickly. It's almost like this spike means that we then drop off a cliff. It's what I call the fragile confidence cycle. You have a win, you feel confident, you get some criticism, failure, and you spiral to doubt, and you repeat. Win, criticism, win, criticism, win, criticism. Just this week, I was talking to a client who is a VP, and she was telling me about she's 7 weeks into a new role. Very proud of her. She's extraordinary. If you're listening, you are extraordinary, by the way, my love. You know who I'm talking about. And she came to me, she was saying, I feel like the team doesn't trust me. I feel like, why am I here? Because she's now reached the point where she's trying to insert herself in decision making. She's trying to show her credibility. And it's, she's in a startup where she has been brought in to be the adult in the room, quite frankly. And they're used to very technical, hands-on leaders. And she is not that's not what they need at this point. And she's really struggling with, do they believe in me? Do they trust me? Do they respect me? And this has just massively undermined her this week. It's undermined her self-belief, her ability to show up. And it's taking cognition away from the stuff that really matters, the decisions that means that she is the adult in the room that the company desperately needs. So the problem is, if you are dependent on constant validation, it's always going to feel temporary. And like my client, you always feel fragile because, especially as you rise up in the ranks, you will get less positive affirmations from other people. You'll get less external validation. Great bosses early in our career go, great work, well done. But the reality is, we get higher up, our bosses don't have time. That is not their job. Their job is not to treat us like they're our parent and making us feel good. Their job is to make sure the company wins, so we all have jobs. That's your job too. I tend to say to clients, as an executive, the only feedback you get is bad feedback. If you're getting silence, you're doing great. And they're like, really? Yes. Which means we need to learn how to have an internal pep talk. Rather than having an external pep talk to give us proof, we need an internal pep talk. We have to have self-trust. So let me know, are you working on your self-trust? Drop in the chat. Let me know, is self-trust something you actively work on? Do you think self-trust is something you have, or something that maybe could do with some work? Pop in the chat and let me know. Because self-trust means things like, even if I make a mistake, I know I'm going to recover. Or if I get criticized, I can still filter out what's useful and let go of the rest. Even if I feel fear, I can still act. That shift from needing external validation, outside validation coming in, to building our inner trust is what makes your confidence sustainable. In my mind, it's what allows you to make great decisions, because you are going to get criticism in your life, in your career. I was one of these people. One of the reasons why this series exists is because if you'd met me a decade ago, I was the person that threw up before work from stress. I had chronic anxiety. I did not know that. I thought it was normal. I wish I had gone and sought help for my anxiety, but I did not know this. I've really sorted my anxiety out now. I'm a coach. But today I can get criticism and ask myself, what's valid and what's just this person lashing out? How can I grow? So rather than being in my own head and either taking it all completely personally and losing a week's sleep, which literally has happened before in my life, or going, I can't face that and burying my head in the sand. Neither of those two approaches are helpful. Instead, when you get criticism, you have to ask yourself, what is useful? What can I do with this information? How can I grow? Rather than letting it control you or dismiss it because you can't deal with it, right? You're going to get criticism in your career. You're going to get criticism in life. We all do. I think actually criticism is one of the biggest gifts. I like it to be constructive, but even really negative criticism, in my mind, is a gift. It tells me something. It might tell me that the relationship I have with that person isn't what I thought, or it might be that I'm pushing some buttons. But even better is when it says, you missed the mark there, Toni. How can you level up? Because if I'm not leveling up, I'm not growing. And if I'm not growing, I'm not doing my job. So today, I want you to start imagining, what would it feel like to know that your confidence doesn't vanish the moment someone disagrees with you, or when a meeting gets tough, or when somebody undermines you? Drop a light bulb in the comments if you've ever noticed the roller coaster. One day you're on top of the world, the next day you're in self-doubt, because that's the cycle that we're going to break today. That's what I'm here for. We're going to break this. So let's start with something I hear every week as a coach, maybe every day. I thought I was confident, and then one setback, one piece of tough feedback, one tense meeting, suddenly I'm spiraling. Does that sound familiar? Here's what's happening. Here's what's really going on. When you've nailed the presentation, you've got the promotion, you are then going down. So let's dig into this cycle of confidence killers, the criticism and the failure. So many of us tell us that we lose sleep. We replay this story at 2 a.m. But the criticism and failure are inevitable. The problem isn't that they happen. The problem is how we process them. Most of us are conditioned to hear, I'm not good enough. I don't belong here. But when we're confident, we filter it differently. We separate our worth from our performance. Your performance and your worth are not the same thing. So here are 3 steps to do this. Write these down. Step number 1, ask what's true, what's useful, what's noise. Let me just get rid of the sunshine. I hate to say that, but sunshine in my eyes. What's true, what's useful, what's noise. Not all feedback is equal. Some is gold, some is bias, some is projection. All feedback has some use, but what is it telling you? The confident move is to sort out, instead of swallowing the whole thing and putting it all inside you, what's true, what's useful, what's noise. That's step number 1. Step number 2, reframe failure as data. This might come across as a little bit arrogant. That's not my intent. I don't think I'm arrogant. Maybe that's an arrogant thing to say. I don't believe I fail. I believe I mess up. I believe I can learn. I believe I can grow. I believe I'm never done growing. I believe I can always improve. The question becomes, is it worth the effort in this particular situation, or should I put my effort into something else? It's always weighing up, where is the area to focus on improving? Like what's the most important thing to focus on? But failure I've let go of, because I found it was a very toxic phrase. I found that failure was a way to beat myself up. Failure is often given as a verdict. So what if we let go and say failure isn't a verdict, it's information. So I reframe failure as data. That doesn't mean I don't mess up. I absolutely mess up. But I get data. I get information. So number 2 is reframe your failure as data, and ask yourself, what did I learn that makes me sharper next time? What data is in this bit of feedback? What data is in this situation? Leaders who rise aren't the ones who never fail. Quite the contrary. I actually feel like the most extraordinary leaders I have the amazing privilege to work with are the ones who fail fast and recover fast. Because failure is a symptom of trying hard things, of doing difficult situations, of putting yourself in the way of something. And when you do that, it's because you're trying, because you are experimenting. You're doing something nobody else is doing. And that's the way to really succeed and thrive. If you're behind everybody, if you're waiting for everybody else to do the hard things first and verify that you're going to be fine and safe, you're never going to be in front of the crowd. You are never going to be the person who's leading the way, who leads the organization. You need to be out there in front. You need to be taking risks and embracing failure as data. So I want you to understand, what is it that I can find out here that's going to make me sharper next time? That's step number 2. Step number 3, anchor back to self-trust. So come back to self-trust. Instead of I messed up, so I'm not capable, say I messed up and I trust myself to adjust and grow. That halts the spiral, because when we have a negative situation and we lean into those negative thoughts, we literally spiral downwards. We have this each negative emotion generates negative thoughts, which generates negative feelings, and we generate more negative emotion, and we just spiral down. You need to interrupt the cycle. We're going to talk in a minute about fast and slow thinking, and this is part of it. But you need to interrupt the cycle and stop yourself leaning into, oh my God, I'm a terrible human, and adjust the narrative and say, I trust myself to get out of this. I trust myself to adjust and grow here. Yes, I've done bad, or I wasn't the best, or I've let somebody down, or, that was uncomfortable feedback to hear. But allow yourself to lean into, this is an opportunity for me. So anchor back to trusting the fact that you can leverage yourself out of this. You can be a better person precisely because of the data you've just gathered. So those are my 3 steps. Ask what's true, what's useful, what's noise. Reframe failure to being data, and then anchor back to your self-trust. I recently worked with a lady who got really harsh feedback from a VP that she reported into. Her old pattern would have been to shrink, over apologize, lose confidence for weeks. But we reframed it. We did exactly this. We interrupted, we asked, we reframed, and we anchored. What's true? What's useful? What's noise? Turned out half of it was bias. That's not unusual. Half of it, though, was genuinely helpful. And she would have done one of two things, exactly what I used to do as well. Either we take it all so personally, we can't even see what's useful, or we'd have gone, I can't deal with this, bury your head in sand, assume it was all biased, and just, I'm not going to deal with that. There is often a grain of truth, even in the most obnoxious feedback. There's a reason why they picked on you, even if it's like really unfair. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Why did they pick on me? It might be they picked on you, and you know what? I often say, if I get certain people upset online, I do not get upset about that anymore. I used to, because I'm online all the time, but I don't anymore, because you know what? If I am succeeding in antagonizing people who don't believe in women in tech, I think I'm doing my job. So yay, it's a data point that says, yes, I've done the right thing. The key thing is to absorb this feedback and decide what to do with it. There's always something there. There's an element of, what data does it give me? I really think this can reset relationships as well. And that's exactly what happened with my client. Because when she moved on, she adjusted because she heard the feedback. She recognized what was bias. I think unconscious in this case. It was unconscious bias. I do naively think the majority of the human race is decent. I think a lot of it's unconscious. But she took the piece that was helpful. She changed things. She made adjustments. She moved on. And then she asked for feedback later on. And the VP told her, I've never seen someone take feedback so constructively. So many of us struggle with feedback. And that's the difference. I think we get defensive because it hurts. But when we can stop ourselves from being wounded and instead build our credibility with it, it's amazing. So I would love to hear from you. What's harder for you, handling criticism or bouncing back from failure? Criticism or bounce back? Drop a C for criticism or an F in the comments for failure. Tell me which one's harder. Okay, let's talk about how to build confidence when you're feeling fragile. How you build the kind of external validation sourcing internally so that you have the confidence that lasts. Because I don't want you to wait for a perfect external validation moment when you're finally feeling ready. I want you to have the habit embedded daily, weekly, in the moment, to rewire your brain for self-trust, because you can literally rewire your brain for self-trust. So let's break this down. First of all, daily habits, they ground your confidence. First of all, wins tracker. I think my clients must be sick and tired of me saying this, but you need some way to track your wins. I want you to write down every day something you've done that added value. It shifts your brain from focusing on tasks to focusing on impact. And bonus, if you get good at this, you track business impact too. And when you come to me and say, I need to land a new job, Toni, and I can't seem to get interviews, or when I do get interviews, I don't progress, the biggest thing is showing impact. If you have a wins tracker, I'm just going to pull that out, and we're going to turn that into narratives to help you with your resume, your LinkedIn profile, and your interview technique. It's so good. But in the moment, the real reason we're doing it, not everything in there is appropriate for the interview or your resume, but you want to add value every day. And if you can track that value, if you can say, here's what I did today, here's the small thing in a bad, toxic day, here's the small thing I did. Maybe you had a really toxic day, but you're proud of the fact that you held steady. Maybe like one of my clients who got undermined this week, she didn't lose it. Right? But other times it's about, hey, I showed up and I did a kick-ass presentation this week. And it's so easy to focus on, I did a kick-ass presentation, but I had this hard comment. And we focus on that negative comment. What we're trying to do is rewire the brain. So we spend so much time as a species looking negatively, and that really does pull us down. All we're trying to do is just balance that seesaw out. Most of us, the seesaw is so far in the direction of the weight coming from negativity. We're just trying to balance the seesaw. I'm not going to turn you into an asshole. Excuse my language. I'm not trying to make you arrogant. We're literally just leveling things out. So keep a wins tracker every day, 5 minutes, end of the day. What have I done today to add value? Small things add up, right? Quick journaling. Today I showed up with confidence when What did you do? Even if it smelled tiny, felt tiny, smelt tiny, felt small, felt tiny. Words are not my friend today when it's a Friday. Or use micro reframes. Swap, I hope I did okay, to I contributed this today. Right? If you find yourself using words of I should have, woulda, coulda, or I hope, reframe that to something constructive. It is so simple and yet so profound that when we take a moment to slow down, ask ourselves, how have we showed up? What are we proud of? Have we added value? What have you contributed? And you slow down and do that, you literally change your mindset. We can see it. It's neuroplasticity. People have done MRIs to show this. I wish I could find the paper. They actually see the brain changes when you do this. So it works. It's not pseudoscience. It really works. Okay. The second one is the weekly things I want you to do, building your confidence muscle. At the end of every week, I want to ask you to ask yourself, what risks did I take this week? Where did I act even though I felt doubt? And then you're going to say, celebrate the progress. You're going to say, did I move forward? Yes, I did. Instead of, did I do it flawlessly? We're looking for progress, not perfection. This ties into the whole imposter syndrome thing, where we're perfectionists. One type of imposter syndrome is perfectionism. We don't like to show our work unless it's perfect. We think everything has to be perfect. But what we want to do in terms of the confidence muscle is ask ourselves, did I move things forward? Rather than how flawless was I, and judging from that place of flawlessness. And then a final piece weekly is what worked, what stretched me, what will I try again? Again, we're just taking a moment to slow ourselves down and look for progress, look for where we've got out of our comfort zone. How did you act even though you felt doubt? And where have you stretched yourself? Those are so important. The final thing is what to do in the moment. When you catch yourself in a low confidence moment. So I talk about this a lot with executive presence. 3 steps: notice, pause, reframe. Notice in the moment that you're feeling a particular way that is unhelpful. So you've got to understand you're judging yourself. You're in a spiral. You're going, I can't do this. What if? Or that hurt. You're getting defensive. Notice, right? Notice the physical reaction that means you're having a psychological response. Psychological responses are just hormones, though. Our brain responding to a hormone. And what we're trying to do with the pause, number 2, notice pause, is you're trying to reduce the amount of the hormone being produced. Adrenaline, cortisol are the 2 classic ones. You're trying to slow down enough and refocus yourself so you stop producing those hormones. So you're going to pause, deep breaths, box breathing like we talked about last time. Notice and pause. In the pause, if you can pause to 20 seconds-ish, with breathing, you will probably stop producing or keep producing the cortisol and adrenaline. And once you stop producing it, you then just got to get it out your bloodstream. And that actually only takes between, I hear different numbers, about 60 seconds for most people. Interestingly, if you do this, you get rid of it faster. It's one of the things I'm not saying you should just in a meeting stand up and do this, but maybe off camera if you're on camera. Use it up. Use up that cortisol and adrenaline. The other one to realize is the same hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, are what we use when we're excited as when we're scared and nervous. One of the things my coach taught me is the phrase scare-sighted, because they're the same thing. It's how our brains are interpreting those hormones. So another thing you can do in that pause is to decide that you're excited rather than nervous and upset, right? So you're noticing, you're pausing, and then you're reframing. Move, I recommend, maybe to one option is quietly understand how you're talking to yourself, how you're talking to others, and how you can reframe that situation. Ask a quality question instead of over explaining in the moment. Pause instead of getting defensive. See what you've contributed rather than how imperfect you were. Reframe the situation in front of you. This really matters, because if we do these in the moment situations, the daily reflections and the weekly reflections, you are building the baby steps. Confidence isn't big milestones. It's micro reps repeated daily and weekly until they become second nature. So let me ask this. Which area feels like it needs the most attention for you right now? A D for daily, a W for weekly, or an M for in the moment? Where are you dropping the ball? Pop in the chat. D for daily, W for weekly, enter in the moment, because the answer tells you where you need to work on your muscle the most. So you think about building muscles in the gym, you build the muscles that are the weakest. You look at where your weak spot is and you work on that first. And when that one's done well, you then look at your new weak spot. It's the same thing here. Confidence is a muscle. You got to train it. You got to take everyday reps. You look for the weak spot. You work on that first. When that's improved, you then go for the new weak spot, the thing that was in the middle ground beforehand. Now, let's bust one big myth about confidence. Confidence doesn't mean you never feel fear. If you're waiting for the day when you'll walk into every meeting fearless, you will be waiting forever. I still have fear when I do something for the first time. When I started this series of LinkedIn Lives on Fridays. I used to do LinkedIn Lives with a friend, and she's gone off to do other things. And then I took a couple of months off, I think, and then I started doing this solo. And it was the first time I'd regularly done solo live events. I've done public speaking for years, but this was different. It was me solo on LinkedIn and YouTube and every week. And the first two, I was nervous. This is my job. I talk about this stuff every day with clients. I love it. It's my soul's work. And yet I wasn't fearless. So if you are waiting for the day you have no fear, you will be waiting forever. Even the most senior of us feel nerves before high stakes moments, new situations. The difference is not letting the fear stop us. We act anyway. And confidence is about self-trust. I might feel fear, but I trust myself to handle it. Trust yourself. One of the biggest triggers I see for fear is disagreement. So many brilliant women tell me, if I push back, will I sound difficult? If I disagree with my boss, will I get fired? By the way, I've got a podcast episode on how to disagree with your boss without losing your job. If you want that, let me know. I can find it for you, or go to my website, tonicollis.com/podcast, and you probably will see, I think it was over the summer sometime. Look on YouTube. If you want the link, let me know. But you can break down how to deal with disagreements so that you're still confidently disagreeing without burning bridges or putting our credibility at risk, right? It's about anchoring in shared goals. Here's how I see this going, or use curiosity before challenging. Can I offer a different perspective? Frame disagreement as value. This only matters if it helps us achieve this outcome. So I'd suggest that. Reframing disagreement from conflict to contribution can help you step away from that fear place. Or rather, maybe lean into action instead of fear, because I think the fear might still be there, right? And that's okay. Confidence really comes, by the way, from taking action and realizing you're okay. The first two LinkedIn Lives, I was nervous. I'm fine now. I don't even think about it. I have to do the prep, but, and I have to do hair and makeup, which I don't do every day, as my clients will attest. The number of times where I have a client meeting on a day I'm doing a podcast on one of these, and they're like, oh, you look lovely. And I'm like, yeah, I do, when I actually bother. But that's it. I don't have fear. I just have to do the work to look decent. We're rewiring our brains to say, hey, I can do this. Like, I've got experience. But before you have the experience that says confidence, you can rewire your brain to say, I trust that I can do this. I trust I will be okay. I would love to hear from you if you think this is something you could do. What's harder for you? Speaking up when you disagree, or acting when you're afraid? Speaking up when you disagree or acting when you're afraid, which is harder? I'd love to know. And by the way, feel free to send me a DM. And as I said right at the beginning, if you have questions from anything in this series, drop a question to me. You can, if you want, drop it in a DM if that's more comfortable. I know some of you don't want to put it out there in public, and that I totally respect that. I really, honestly, I'm on a mission here. Let's make a whole generation of confident women who lead with empathy, who lead with presence, who change the world rather than being in our own heads. And I say that again as somebody who has spent a lot of her adult life with anxiety issues, being constantly in that worry state of mind. It's one of the biggest pieces of work I've had to do in my coaching, like when I'm being coached by my coach, is dealing with my anxiety. And honestly, it's a game changer. And I'm now patient as well, which I think my impatience was partly anxiety driven. I never thought that was the case. I thought I was just driven. But I think I'm more patient now because I have more confidence in myself. And it manifests in being patient with everybody around me, which I find fascinating. So, okay, One more thing I want to go through before we wrap up today is fast thinking and slow thinking. um, if you want to rewire your brain, you need to slow think. Here's what I mean. So most of us go through life thinking fast most of the time. In fact, I would say most every human. It's necessary for us to function. We can't think slowly. Thinking slowly is the kind of thinking you do when you're doing something incredibly cognitively demanding. We're quite good at it when we're academically driven people at school, if that was you, because when you're learning something new for the first time and really embedding it, that is slow thinking. Academic researchers is slow thinking. The really interesting thing is you can only do a very short amount per day, which is why when people homeschool their kids, you actually only need to do a couple of hours of teaching, because that's all there's actually mental capacity for. It's incredibly demanding on the body. When you do slow thinking, you need a ton of calories. So the human condition is don't slow think. It's not good for us because it uses resources. The classic example I use all the time is when you go into the grocery store and you're choosing your box of cereal that you've had the same box for 10 years. Do you look at every single type, every brand, or do you just go, no, that's my brand of my type of cereal? Probably the latter. If you just go to the shelf and pick or click in your basket, in your online basket, that's what you have. That's fast thinking. That's how we mostly operate. If for every single item in your grocery shop, you went and you researched every week what you were going to get, which brand of cereal, which cauliflower, I just bought some cauliflower, which particular cheddar cheese, or what cheese, and which particular one, once I choose cheddar, which cheddar, you would never leave the shop. That's slow thinking. It's cognitively draining. Now, it doesn't work. We can't operate like that all the time. Most of the time, we're fast thinking. Most of our decisions are micro decisions happening very, very fast based on autopilot. It's the source of unconscious bias, by the way, that's a whole other conversation if anybody wants to hear about that. But what it does when we're having spirals is we're triggered a tough question, a criticism, our self-doubt. Our brains go into fast thinking mode. We're reacting, we're people pleasing, we're filling the silence just to look like we know what we're doing. But a confident leader slows down. She pauses, she assesses, she chooses a response that signals clarity and authority, and she rewires her brain that she's not panicking, that she's in control, and that she's not in a place where she needs to worry. When we do this, we stay in control, but it's expensive, so our brains don't want us to do it. But you need to do this. This is the difference. When people say that person just has executive presence, this is one of those things. They look like they're in control. So a couple of things to practice slow thinking. First of all, pause 3 seconds before you answer. Breathe, gather your thoughts. It feels like a long time, but it reads as confidence to others and gives you the time to bring yourself back to yourself. Ask a quality question. The question I love to ask, I've talked about this in several of the episodes before the Unshakeable series. What problem are we actually trying to solve for here? It lifts the conversation back to strategy, buys you time to slow your thinking down. And then post-meeting, did I respond from self-doubt or from self-trust? Actually, end of day, the best executives I work with have a daily reflection. I like to ask them, what went well? What didn't go well? What will I do differently tomorrow? 3 questions every day. That is self-reflection. Self-reflection builds executive presence, builds confidence. And when you do that and don't judge yourself, it builds self-trust. Now, I get you to write it down, because the other thing to slow your thinking is to write or speak. When we just think, we spiral, we get out of control. That's fast thinking. If we write it down by hand, not typing, because there's something about typing which means we stay in fast thinking mode for most of us. And I say that as somebody who does type a lot of her notes. But when I really want to control my brain and rewire, I will handwrite. Even if I can't read my own handwriting, writing it down seems to do something different, or speaking out loud, because you can't speak or write as fast as your brain spirals. So you are rewiring your brain to reflect in a different way over time. Every pause is a chance to rewire. Every note you take is a chance to rewire. Every time you choose slow thinking over fast thinking, you are reinforcing self-trust. I decline to use that simple 2-second pause, 3 seconds, 2 seconds before answering other executives. She said to me after the first week, "Oh my God, it's so weird, so awkward." But within weeks, she was just being shown as more thoughtful, more authoritative. Nothing else changed, just that pause. I mean, this is the way I coach. I'm like, let's try this one thing. We'll have a coaching session. We'll dig into an issue. We'll try one thing. And I'll get her to do it every single day in meetings, report back to me in Slack every evening. And we'll do that for 2 weeks and we change something. And it's small changes, big difference. That's the way I love to coach. I'm like, none of us have time for lots of homework. Baby steps that make a difference today. So try a simple 2 or say 3 second pause before answering, see what happens. Okay. I'm just trying to think, what have I missed here? I've kind of got jumped all over my notes a little bit. What have I missed? I think we've covered everything. So I just want to wrap up with why are we here? So remember, confidence isn't about feeling fear. It's about building self-trust, taking action to overcome the fear by experiencing that went fine. But to take the action, you have to have self-trust. You can have daily, weekly, in the moment habits that shift yourself from self-doubt to authority, self-belief, self-trust. It's so much about self-trust here. Trust that you are going to be okay. Trust that you can handle criticism. Trust that you can handle failure without crumbling, turning it into credibility builders instead, turning failure into data. Build yourself up with the moments of learning. And remember that you can disagree. You can have insightful comments. You can receive feedback and not be reactive, and you can give feedback and not lose your job. If nothing else, take this away from today. Confidence isn't about the last pep talk you had. It's a practice. It's a muscle. And if you want to be one of those women who thrives at the highest level, the ones who look like they have it all, they aren't crazy overworked, they don't look like they lack sleep, they are in control and they're changing the world. They have these practices precisely so they know they can stop at the end of the day. They know they can have downtime. They sleep well. They take care of themselves. And they make big decisions every day and they're okay with it. That's exactly what I help my clients do. So if you want to go deeper on any of this, don't forget, send me a DM. I'd be delighted to help you. And one more final thing. If you would like tools to help you here, then make sure that you DM me for the high stakes confidence communication scripts. These are scripts that you can take and use daily in meetings to come across more confident, to communicate difficult situations clearly and succinctly. Executive presence communication. Send me a DM with word scripts and I'll send them right over to you. And one final thing, we are moving on to another series. Next week, we're talking burnout. Same time next week, we're moving into our leadership burnout series, and we're going to start with a conversation on where burnout shows up in surprising ways for us as senior leaders. So join me, same time, same place next week.